felt as if the circumstances of life were too much to deal with on your own, but you lacked the resources or support system you needed? On this episode of the PA System, I'm talking about the value of community, why it's important to our well-being, especially in times of change. And so, as many of you know, big changes have happened for businesses as well as individuals over the last year plus, and many of you have experienced those as well. And there's a number of reasons that it's important that we take the steps to tap into our communities. And that's really what I want to talk about a little bit tonight, and really to focus on the mental health aspect of this, because for so many people, when we look at kind of the statistics from what's been happening, a lot of people are struggling in this area, and there's some ways that we can really support ourselves and each other. And so I just really wanted to come on tonight and share some of these with you as food for thought. So one of the big reasons that community is important to us is because it gives us a sense of belonging. And so, if you've ever felt like you don't fit in somewhere, you just haven't been able to connect with certain people or certain groups, it can feel lonely. And oftentimes, that having that sense of belonging really helps us to feel like we've got a little bit more of an identity and a little bit of something to contribute to this group that we're a part of. So it really adds to the richness of our lives in a number of different ways. And especially if, this group or organization is aligned with our own values and our own beliefs, because that just anchors us in a little bit closer and gives us the opportunity, of course, then to build relationships and reduce the likelihood that we will experience loneliness. And I know, that there's a lot of people that have felt sort of shut in over the last year, or maybe, they just have trouble getting out of their homes due to disabilities or whatever the case may be. And I think, as a community, that's why it's important for us to have this kind of awareness, because if there's people in our neighborhoods, in our churches, in other organizations that may be shut in, that may be alone, they need people to reach out to them, right? They really need people to go a little bit out of their way and check in with them occasionally and just make sure, are you okay? Are things going all right? Is there anything you need? Can I be of assistance? And so just to sort of keep that in the back of our mind too, that knowing we may not be the only ones. A lot of times there's many other people that are in the same situation. And if we are the ones that step out and take some initiative, then we could really help someone else along the way as well. So that's one important point. And then just, having support, who do you turn to if you need something, or who do you talk to when you need someone to listen or to give you some good insights? And so, starting to think about, okay, if there is a crisis in my life, where do I go at that point? Do I have the resources in place to deal with that? And if not, how can I start to, again, create a little bit more of a support system for myself, and or be a support system for others or someone else? And oftentimes you can reach out to churches to do things like this too, but there's a lot of community organizations that try to support individuals in various capacities. And so this is a great way to be able to do that. Also, to kind of consider, what kind of purpose can you serve in your community? I mean, we all have these gifts and talents, right, that we bring to the world, which can really be a blessing to others, but also to ourselves. So, if we want to do something kind of fun, maybe we can hold an event of some sort and bring others in, teach a class, maybe it's just how to make a simple dish of some sort, or maybe it's an art project, just some way to help people have a place where they can engage in something that they enjoy doing, and also then build relationships, right, and connect with one another. And again, there's so many organizations that are already established in communities that try to facilitate things like this. And if you look at places like the YMCA and these sorts of places, oftentimes you can hold classes and events through them. But of course, there's lots of ways that you can go online and structure a meetup and start to think about the different ways that you can organize and become involved. And of course, you can go on Facebook anytime, right? And there's endless numbers of events. You know, if you're searching through your community and you're, you know, in a good sized community, you're going to find more events than you could probably ever attend. But even if you're in smaller communities, you'd be surprised how some of the community centers, libraries, all of these places will have events occasionally, but they will also host them. And so those are just some things to kind of keep in mind, because again, you know, coming back to, if you think back, you know, a year ago, a lot of us were in a different frame of mind, right? We were just trying to figure out, okay, how do we get our bearings and how do we move forward, and feeling like sort of what's happened to our way of life. And so to start to think in the terms of, okay, well, maybe we can reestablish some of these things that have been at the core of what has kept us strong as communities over time, right? And so in doing so, tapping back into some of those same key principles, we can then carry those into the future and also teach our kids to do this. You know, I think one of the really valuable things about doing things like this is we can bring our kids along. We can show them what it means to be in community. We can show them what it means to engage with others, to support others, and to bring our gifts and talents, right, to our world and help to make it more of what we want it to be. And I think that's a really powerful thing, right? I mean, we all want to create this better world for the next generations, but it doesn't really happen unless we're proactive about it. And so by taking those steps, involving our kids, having conversations around it at home, finding events we can take them to, all these sorts of things help them to then later in life remember, if they get to a tough spot, okay, here are some ways that I can deal with struggles. Here are some resources that might be out there. Here's some ways I can support other people and, you know, promote these kinds of concepts and values in my own community. And of course, you know, we can always get involved with civic activities, or, you know, make sure that we're attending city council meetings or paying attention to what's going on in our schools. And I think these are really important things as well, because of course, you know, we don't always get all the information we need from the news or the media. And if you're like me, you've kind of gotten to the point where you're like, I'm not even sure I want to turn that on. I'm not sure I want to listen to a lot of what's being said or talked about. I just want to go out there and see for myself what's really going on, you know, what really is happening in my community, and then what role can I play in making it the type of community that I want to live in and that I would want my children to live in. And so, you know, having that mindset that we can't really depend on the media to give us reliable information, and that we have a responsibility to go out and actually take the initiative, right, to get involved and figure out how we can be a part of creating what we really want. So along with that, you know, some of the things that I think it's important to keep in mind too is just, what are some of the things that you're interested in, and what are your values, and start to really look at that, you know, a little bit more seriously, and consider, what do I want to create? You know, what are the things that I want for my kids to be seeing, or my grandkids, or my, you know, in my case, it's, you know, my niece and nephew. What are the things that, you know, I now can do to help them have a better understanding of how their community works, you know, how they play a role in it, and what they have to offer. And I think that's a really wonderful thing to be able to share with others, right? To bring others in and say, look, you've got these gifts, you've got these talents, you have a lot to offer your community. How can we work together? How can we support each other and bring your talents to the world, so that not only can you benefit from it, but others can benefit from it as well? So that's a really powerful thing to think about. And then also, again, you know, maybe you have wisdom you can share, right? Maybe you have skills, Maybe you have information that you can share with others in your community. And it's just as simple as doing a small class, an introductory class. You know, there's a lot of, again, you can connect with schools and organizations in your area that oftentimes will allow you to sign up to do classes. And you can, you know, go out in your community and share some of this information with people. And oftentimes, you know, people are looking for this information. And so it's just another way to get engaged, get involved, but then also start creating that change that you want to see. And so as I was thinking about doing this show tonight, it kind of struck me. I actually went to an event last night myself, which was for a local charity here. And, you know, it was so interesting because even though, you know, I can drive around my city and I can see that there are homeless individuals here, you know, and that this has become a more obvious problem over the last few years. At the same time, I'm thinking, okay, well, you know, how is that going to change if we're not doing anything to change it? And so going out and being a part of this event was really informative for me because I learned a lot about what's being done in the community, but also, you know, what the problem really looks like, you know, how significant is it, and what kind of resources are needed. And, you know, these are the things that it doesn't take too much of our time and effort to do, but it does take a little initiative. And so, you know, by me simply going out and going to this event, I have a whole different perspective on what's happening in my community in relation to the homelessness issue. And then from there, I have the opportunity to go, okay, I can evaluate what do I have to offer, right? How can I somehow contribute in some positive way so that I can then help improve the condition of my own community. And, you know, in this case, it was a very small thing that I did, right? I just went out, I made a small donation, I was part of the event, but the being there and the participating really in many ways was the biggest benefit, because in doing so, I have this completely different perspective. And now I get to kind of start aligning some of my behaviors and some of the things that I'm focusing on around that. And so it became an opportunity for me, but it was also like an empowering opportunity, because I suddenly see, okay, well, there's these other opportunities, there's these other things that I can do, these other ways that I can get involved and hopefully have a positive impact in my community around this one issue. And the fact is, you know, and we all know this to be true, there's plenty of issues, right, in our communities that we can all address and be a part of. But I think, you know, it's important to really get kind of a handle on what's really important to us, you know, what really resonates with us. What do we really value? What do we really want to see change? How do we want to see our communities, you know, operating effectively, and how can we be a part of making that happen? And so this was kind of like one little step for me. It was like, okay, well, I'm going to go do this thing. This is step number one, right? I mean, I didn't have to do anything. I just had to show up. Someone else had to do all the planning. They did all the organizing. You know, they made sure that there was music and, you know, drinks if you wanted them, and, you know, all that sort of thing. All I had to do was show up and get the information. And so it couldn't have been easier, right? It couldn't have been easier. And at the same time, yet I felt like, okay, I'm taking that first step. I'm doing that first thing that I know to do. And that's really all it takes. It's just, you know, one step at a time. What can I do? And then that takes us a little bit closer to achieving what it is we want to achieve. So I just want to kind of encourage you to think about some of these things going forward into the next weeks and months. Because the fact is, you know, we're all seeing a lot of changes. We're all seeing that, you know, we need the support of one another. We need to know that we have communities that are strong, where, you know, we can go out and maybe we're going to do an event, or we're going to support a charity, and we're going to be there with people with totally different beliefs than us, and yet to know that we have this value in common, right? That we value certain things, and we don't have to look alike or think alike, but we can still come together around this one thing. And it reminds us that, you know, there's not all this division and this separation that there seems to be when we watch the news or we hear stories from the media, right? The reality is that a lot of us are just living our day-to-day lives. We are doing the best that we can, you know, to keep our own life going in the direction we want it to, but also we want to see our communities thriving, right? We don't want to see just the box stores survive. We want to see the small businesses around us survive. We want to see the organizations around us survive. And so to be a part of helping to make that happen is a really wonderful and empowering opportunity. So again, just a little bit of encouragement to tap into your communities. You know, take a friend with you, you know, even if it's just to go to like a local church event. You know, a lot of times churches will have fun events that you can attend. You can check into those. Those are pretty easy to find online as well. Whatever the case may be, you know, just start to explore a little bit and think about what's important to you first and foremost, because you're certainly not the only person out there with that value. And once you really kind of take hold of that thing that you believe is important for you to move forward into, then you will start to connect with those others that share that same value. And so I hope this is of help and support to you on some level. And as always, if you do have any questions, please reach out to me at any time. I do love to share resources. That's just something I kind of enjoy doing anyway. It's fun for me, and I do, you know, it's part of my networking and building community online and offline. So always reach out. And of course, as always, thank you for sharing this out. Maybe this is a message someone else needs to hear tonight as well. But with that said, lots of love and light going out to all of you. And I will see you again here next week. Good night, everyone.